All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is a Monday, and it's after a weekend, a holiday weekend to a degree, certainly Easter weekend. And I was off Sunday. It was Friday, rather. I wasn't planning to be, but we had a situation at home I had to take care of, so I missed Friday's program. Do want to send our condolences, of course, to the Vatican. Pope Francis really was, I believe, a kind, decent man who did the best he could to try to make things a little bit better for the poor, the struggling workers, and obviously victims of empire. So, sad loss, Pope Francis dying over the weekend. And I will actually play a clip or a couple of clips from the ceremony that he did participate in. Was it yesterday? At the Vatican. He also met with Vice President Vance. I don't have anything to say about that. One other point, which I'll get into in today's program, which, by the way, is called Scammers with a question mark. I'm not overtly calling the two famous progressives in the slide there at the beginning, AOC and Bernie. I'm not saying they're scammers, but I'm asking the question, are they scamming the American people? And some hangers-on to people that we've talked about before, maybe on this program, trying to get a little bit of the sugar. So we'll talk about that. I want to just make one other point before we get into the first story, which unfortunately, sadly, tragically, is the same one we've been centering for, 18 months now, the genocide continuing in Gaza. But before we get there, I just want to say, I had a really, really successful video that I dropped. Actually, didn't drop it. I did it live. It was a live stream video Wednesday, and looking on course to be my most successful video. So I'm pleased about that. Hope to continue the momentum. I mentioned before we had our suspension that the numbers were going up a little bit. I was getting a little bit positive, a little bit optimistic about that. Disappointed when we had the suspension, but good to see. Glad to see that that momentum continuing. So if you're a new viewer, if you're a new subscriber, please do call in 240-242-5646 at any point. I did test the ringer, so it is ringing. I should hear it. You shouldn't hear it. I should hear it. All right, let's start with the situation in the Holy Land, or right adjacent to it, Gaza, and very, very sad. They are very sad Easter for the people who live in that besieged region of the world. So many, many more deaths. Yesterday and into today, we have 39 Palestinians killed over the past 24 hours. I think that 24-hour period actually did start Monday. So I don't have through Sunday today on my slide, but 39 identified killed, and it's just so awful. And we do get just a little bit more from Middle East Eye there. So 39 killed in the past 24 hours, and the death toll now up to. And again, these are people that have been identified, right, where the bodies have been found. There are many buried in the rubble who are missing, presumed dead, but have not actually been officially counted. And, as far as we can glean from the doctors against genocide who have been in Gaza, those who have been reporting from the region, the death toll could well be 4 times, 5 times that number. Certainly the entire region, once home to 2.5 million people, is rubble. 39 dead in the last 24 hours, and the toll count, the actual count, 51,240. Again, the actual number may be, and almost certainly is much higher, but 51,240 since October 7, Israel has killed. Israel and the United States, we include the United States as one of the perpetrators on this program of the genocide, because it's our bombs, it's our missiles, it's the full-throated support of the U.S. government, including, by the way, the efforts successful to prevent global consequences for Israel, including protecting Netanyahu and protecting the regime at all costs, both in the United Nations and elsewhere. That is elsewhere. So 51,240. Do want to just take this quick opportunity here to ask you, if you haven't yet done so, please do subscribe now. We have, there's a bottom right, there's a little blue and white square there at the bottom right where you can subscribe. And again, big numbers over the weekend in terms of new subscribers. So I hope we can keep that going. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you like what we're doing, please do join us as a subscriber. It really makes a difference. I want to get that from a purely selfish standpoint, beyond wanting the message to be spread. I also would love to get a little bit of money from Google, which would happen, I believe, if I get over 500 maybe subscribers. I'm not quite sure the exact the way they do it. No one appears to know. My son said to me, which, speaking of Google, my son said to me over the weekend, he said, you probably would have more subscribers and more views, but almost certainly Google throttles you. The algorithm keeps your videos from being seen by as many people who would be interested. And I said, okay, I believe that. I don't have any reason not to. That's certainly what a lot of people talk about. But what's your evidence? Have you heard from someone who really knows, who could actually confirm what you just said? And the response was, well, everybody knows it. And it's true. Everyone knows that Google doesn't let videos that it doesn't like politically to get as many views as those it has no problem with politically. Everyone, quote, knows, unquote, that. But where's the proof? I believe it. It makes sense. But is it true? I don't know. I'd love to find out for a fact. All right, 240-242-5646 if you haven't, if you'd like to join me. And don't forget, join us on Facebook on Halitics no matter what. Doesn't cost nothing. You just go in there and join the group, and we have some really spirited conversations, really spirited political debates there. So I really like that. And, it's what we're trying to do, is have a dialogue. We'll talk about my theory of change, how we can make things a little bit better going forward in a little bit. That's going to be part of this program. So scammers, the answer is not to give money to Democrats. It's not to give money to Democratic sheepdogs like Bernie and AOC and institutions that glom onto them. That is not the way to bring about the change that I think we all want. I'll talk about what is the answer. Before we get into that, though, let's just real quickly recount this very important story I mentioned in the opening. Pope Francis is dead at 88, and I was thinking he had been Pope for a pretty long time. I know there have been popes for longer. He was elected Pope back in 2013 in March, so it's just over 12 years. And he served the entire term until his death, of course. Previously, Pope Benedict actually stepped down. I think Pope Benedict has died, but so there's no living Pope. But Francis, who really did promote a much more progressive agenda, I think, than some of his other, fellow popes and predecessors in recent times. He's really spoke out against poverty, spoke out against war. His final message, although somewhat muted, really did make clear his staunch opposition to the Israeli genocide. And we'll play that. In fact, we'll play that in just a moment. Here's what Reuters said in their report. And I'll just put this right on the screen, and then we'll actually hear. But I thought that was a good headline, so I wanted to share it after just quickly notifying you that the Pope had died. So he used his final Easter address to call for the Gaza ceasefire. He did not actually say that. It was read for him by a bishop, one of his, one of the subordinates. I believe the bishop from that, obviously that prelate, bishopric, I guess they call it bishopric, I don't know, was the one who talked about it. And we'll play that clip for you in just a moment. Very, very, very sad times. He died, by the way, today. The Pope did, in Rome. So here, let's show you the Pope. Let's show you Pope Francis's final appearance. By the way, I also just had one other thought on this. I was hoping to get Catholic Jack on to talk about one of the friends of this program, at least an old friend of the program, used to come on relatively regularly. Haven't had him on in a while. I would love to have him on. I don't know if he's watching right now. If you are, Jack, give us a call, 240-242-5646. Jack and I have had our differences about politics. He's far less critical of the Democrats than I am, and probably slightly more critical of the Republicans. Hard to be more critical of the Republicans than I'm. After all, I did say they need to impeach Trump. They need to not just impeach Trump, but in my, that program I told you about with a lot of hits, impeach Trump, impeach Secretary of State Rubio, and impeach the, is she the Attorney General? Yeah, Pam Bondi. Yeah. So here's the final appearance, Pope Francis yesterday in the Vatican. So just waving really to the crowd. He's looking pretty puffy there, just recovering. At least the thought was at this moment he was recovering from a bout of pneumonia, double pneumonia. I had thought he had actually been diagnosed with cancer. That was false. That was a rumor that had been spread, or there had been discussion, rumors that he might have cancer. I must have read that somewhere, and it jumped into my mind that he actually did have. No, he was not diagnosed with cancer, but he did have to go to the hospital with an infection. He had pneumonia, and clearly that, or I won't say clearly, but it would appear that he developed a infection beyond that, which led to his death. So here he is looking not very well, a man of 88 years old. And by the way, Fox News here. I guess it's Fox Europe, I'm assuming. I don't know.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
So that's all he said. He said fratelli, his brothers, and I guess he said sisters and brothers. Happy Easter is what he said. Buona Pasqua, which is Happy Easter in Italian. I think Spanish is his first language, but there he's speaking, obviously, in the Vatican, in Rome, to predominantly Italians, and he says it in Italian, Happy Easter. And that was the extent. Obviously, he was weak. He was not able to deliver an Easter address. It's ironic that the Pope, the Pontiff, the highest clergy, the highest priest in the Catholic Church should die on Easter, but maybe he would have wanted that way. I don't know. Let me play the segment that really struck me as important, as relevant, that the bishop read on behalf. This is the Pope's address in the Vatican in St. Peter's Square yesterday that is being read by one of his assistants.
Of life. God created us for life and wants the human family to rise again.
Right, so what he said is God created us for life and wants the human family to rise again. So a very nice message. And the suggestion, rise again, is that we've fallen, right? Is that we're not what we should be. And I don't think that's arguable in this time of genocide, in this time of extraordinary poverty, cheek by jowl with the wealthiest people that the planet has ever seen.
Il bambino nel grembo di sua madre, come quella dell'anziano o del malato.
In his eyes, every life is precious. The life of a child in the mother's womb, as well as the lives of the elderly and the sick.
I'm going to stop right there. So he does have that anti-abortion message, that pro-life, that is certainly consistent with Catholic theology. I'm not going to get all upset about that in this moment.
Who in more and more countries are looked upon as people to be discarded.
And then, of course, he focuses, and it's really important, I think, to recognize this, what the Pope was focusing on there being, the message delivered by his bishop, but I'm going to replay it, that the elderly and the infirm are being discarded, that we're not reverencing our seniors. We're not reverencing, our elders, and that's wrong. So again, what you're hearing from the Vatican is a message that we need to focus our attentions on the least among us, those not the wealthy, not the Musks, not the Bezoses, not the rock stars who go off into space, or the basketball players who are so much fun to watch but are making many millions of dollars. That's not where our attentions ultimately need to be, according to the Catholic theology being expressed by the Pope. Instead, they have to be with the elderly, the infirm, and he'll go on, but that's what I just played. So let me play it again and then continue.
The lives of the elderly and the sick, who in more and more countries are looked upon as people to be discarded. What a great thirst for death, for killing, we witness each day in the many countries raging in different parts of the world. In the many conflicts raging in different parts of the world.
So now he transfers that, right, from the way it should be, which is that we reverence the old and the sick, and we don't, to what we actually are doing, which is seeing a thirst for death.
How much violence we see, often even within families, directed at women and children. How much contempt is stirred up at times towards the vulnerable, the marginalized, and migrants. On this day, I would like all of us to hope anew and to revive our trust in others, including those who are different than ourselves, or who come from distant lands, bringing unfamiliar customs, ways of life, and ideas.
So criticizing, obviously, there, the war by the current administration in the United States. I think this is overt. He met with Vance, the Pope did yesterday, saying, hey, these people from foreign lands are human beings. They deserve to be treated with care, with love, with respect. That's the message. That's completely not just, ignored, disregarded, rejected by our government.
For all of us are children of God.
Dal sepolcro, Chiesa della Risurrezione, dove quest'anno la Pasqua è celebrata nello stesso giorno.
I would like us to renew our hope that peace is possible. From the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Resurrection, where this year Easter is being celebrated by Catholics and Orthodox on the same day, may the light of peace radiate throughout the Holy Land and the entire world.
So he brings up the Holy Land, obviously, because of the genocide there perpetrated by Israel. It's a very overtly political address. I don't usually listen to these. I don't know. Maybe this is how it is every year. I'm guessing this is pretty strong stuff and very important as well. So play just a little bit more of this, and then I want to get into more discussion of the stories of the day.
I express my closeness to the sufferings of the Christians in Palestine and Israel, and to all the Israeli people and the Palestinian people. The growing climate of anti-Semitism throughout the world is worrisome.
I wish she didn't focus on that. I think it's understandable, the growing climate of anti-Semitism, to the extent it is true. But it is important that obviously the suffering of Christians and Muslims in Palestine was referenced. Palestinians was referenced.
Yet at the same time, I think of the people of Gaza and its Christian community in particular, where the terrible conflict continues to cause death and destruction and to create a dramatic and deplorable human and humanitarian situation.
Cessate il fuoco, si liberino gli ostaggi.
I appeal to the warring parties. Call a ceasefire, release the hostages, and come to the aid of a starving people that aspires to a future of peace.
All right, so a very powerful message. Again, my focus would have been more on the Palestinians and not on the hostages. Not that they're not relevant, but Israel has made a decision to forsake its hostages, instead to focus on killing as many Palestinians as it possibly can get away with. But I really don't want to nitpick. That was a very powerful address by the bishop, and on behalf of the now deceased Pope Francis. So he'll be missed. He'll be missed. Voice for peace, voice for the poor, voice for the downtrodden will absolutely be missed. From Al Jazeera, I mentioned already the number of dead over the weekend, but it's not just Muslims. It's really important to recognize that Christians in Gaza are also suffering. And you can see this. Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank marks sorrowful. Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank mark sorrowful Easter amid Israeli attacks. As the killings in Gaza continue, Israel prevents many Christians from reaching holy sites or homes in Jerusalem. And you can see the Palestinian Christians there. The picture is Easter Mass. And the bishop mentioned the Orthodox Church also celebrating Easter on the same day this year. I guess they have a different calendar. It's not always the same Easter day. So they're there in the St. Porphyrius Church in Gaza City. There's been a lot of criticism from Gazan Christians and others that the churches in this country have not spoken out, have not stood up for Christians in Gaza. And I think that's a really fair and legit criticism. Now, certainly, if you're a synagogue, if you're a church, if you're a mosque, you should be speaking out against all injustices, regardless of who the victim is, regardless of their religion. But I think we recognize that there's certainly an affinity, that if you're a Catholic, the suffering of other Catholics may hold a certain place in your heart. So the Christian churches, to the extent that they could have amplified the suffering of Christians in Gaza, might have had the ability to reduce support for the slaughter. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And that's wrong. And that makes them complicit. From Ari, describing the Pope, a saintly man died on a holy day recognized by many Christians across the globe. The Pope left a message. Yes, absolutely. And would that we heed that beautiful message from Pope Francis. I obviously, reworked my, agenda, or however you want to call it, my program in terms of topics to lead after, the focus on Palestine with the Pope. And I thought it was especially pertinent, especially germane, because the Pope, through his spokesperson before he died, obviously was deploring the deaths by Israel, the killing by Israel. But this was, my main topic, and I think they go together, frankly, from the message of peace by the Pope to really a message that I think it's resonating, it seems, with many Democrats, but in the end is not going to make a difference. And we can see the resonance that at least AOC and presumably Bernie are very happy about from the Independent in England. The AOC hauls in staggering, this is from last week, AOC hauls in staggering 9.6 million in just 3 months as she draws massive crowds with Bernie. I can't be happy about that. What is that money going to? Is she going to just give that to her fellow Dems that she calls fantastic? People like Gallego, who has been a vast disappointment, voting for war, voting for more wealth, more of our wealth, our treasure going to Israel, calling Mark Kelly equally pro-war senator, saying that he is a fantastic. Is that what this is about? Jared Golden praising him for being on board Medicare for All when he no longer is? Is that what this is about? Because if that's what it is a scam. They're promoting change, right? This is, we're going to fight oligarchy. That's the explicit term that they're using. The explicit phrase for Bernie and AOC is, we're fighting oligarchy. And yet they're taking this money. Are they going to use it to fight oligarchy? Or are they going to use it to perpetuate it? And I fear very much so they're going to perpetuate it. I saw that, right? You see that story, and I call it scammers, and I asked the question mark, maybe they're not. Maybe they're really true believers and they're really going to fight for us. I'm not getting that vibe. But I do compare it a little bit to what I'm trying to do here. And I was like, like I said, my latest video is outperformed all but a few others to this point. I think to this point it's done better. In other words, after 4 or 5 days, I've never had as many views, well over 1,000 at this point, and it certainly generated more subscriptions than any of my other videos, which I certainly want. But the title of that video, what caught people's eye, is impeach. So it is a clear criticism, attack. It's an attack on the Trump administration. Well-deserved, one I believe in wholeheartedly, but the focus, the point is going after Trump. Now, I also am very critical of the Democrats. I say they should impeach him, but they won't. But I don't think that message really resonates. I think what resonates with people is, hey, Hal's saying we should impeach Trump. I agree. Let me watch the video. Well, that's great. But what it's also telling me is that anti-Trump in my world, in my lane, sells. That it gets hits. And if I wanted to continue to build subscription base, get more viewers, wouldn't necessarily happen. But if I continued to do videos day after day where I attack Trump, I have thumbnails that go after Trump, I probably build audience faster, and maybe to a degree that I can't build given my current ethos, my current method, which is a pox on both your houses, and honestly, a bigger focus on the Democrats. In fact, even my impeach program was to a significant degree critical of the Democrats, recognizing they will not impeach him, certainly not for what they should be impeaching him for, which is denying immigrants human rights, civil rights, violating their constitutional rights to due process, which they absolutely have, violating court orders, flouting them. Those are crimes. He could be impeached for them. He should be impeached for them, but he won't be because the Democrats commit similar crimes and aren't really that upset by those. They're more upset by tariffs because tariffs will reduce the profits of the finance, those who finance their campaigns, including the people who give the AOC $9.6 million. They're more upset, the Democrats, by peace, the potential for peace in Ukraine, the potential that we will no longer finance to the tune of billions and billions of dollars a murderous war in that region. So I want to be clear, even when I go after Trump and say he should be impeached, I'm also going after Democrats. But the message that the Democrats suck also, that the Democrats are a huge part of the problem also, isn't a particularly popular one with my audience, I don't believe, or my potential audience. And if I don't mute that, I will probably have a slower growing channel if the channel grows at all. So if I were a scammer, I would just talk about Trump and how bad he is and how bad the Republicans are. And I would talk about how they're taking away your right to choose. Or that's what they want to do, even if you still have one. And they're going after trans people and they're this and, everything that they're doing and how awful the tariffs are. And that probably would generate more viewers. But I can't do it. And I could say I can't do it because I don't want to, and I don't feel it's right, and because I have this great love for the truth, which that's not my truth, right? My truth is not the Democrats are better and they're good people and sometimes they get things a little bit wrong, but we need to stand with them. That's not my truth. Is that Kyle Kulinski's truth? Because that's what he tells you. Is that Crystal Ball's truth? Because that's what she tells you. Is that Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland's truths? Because that's what they tell you. Maybe it is. I don't know. They have big audiences, much bigger, channels than I do. I couldn't say that. I'm not a good enough actor. I can't pretend that I believe something that I don't. I used to try cases, and I would be somewhat theatrical at times before juries, and it would be effective. They would respond to that, but I wouldn't make stuff up, and I wouldn't argue against my core beliefs, which is one of the reasons I stopped being a trial lawyer, because I felt like I was sometimes. I don't like it. Promoting injuries that maybe weren't as serious as I wanted the jury to believe they were, for example. So I was like, I don't want to do that. I didn't feel good about it. It didn't make me feel good when I went home about what I was doing. I can't do that. I wouldn't be good at it. So I'm not going to tell you that we need the Democratic Party to resurge or that AOC is going to be a great champion, because I don't believe that. I would be lying to you. I can't do that, even recognizing that it might behoove me in terms of my profession. I won't scam you. I can't. And it's sad in a way, because a lot of my friends or former friends find my message intolerable. They don't want to hear it. They can't stand it. People won't talk to me. They won't come on this program. I'm sorry. It saddens me. I wish that weren't the case, but it is. All right. And as I mentioned, here's the real quick the thumbnail from the program. Just again showing you, see, because when I center for censure, these people, it does well. Lots of views, look at all those thumbs up. And everything I said, I believe, but that's not all I believe. I also believe that, yes, impeachment is the remedy, and it ain't going to happen because the Democrats are corrupt themselves. And that $9.6 million that AOC raked in is very, very sad. It's very, very disappointing. Because that money should be used to build a real resistance, to really fight the oligarchy, not just to support one prince against another. All right. This is the scamming, or let's call it the fundraising, isn't just limited to Bernie and AOC. So you see my old group here, Our Revolution, jumping on that bandwagon. Bernie and AOC are taking the fight, they say. But are they? We'll play a clip and we'll see if they're really taking the fight. Can you chip in? Is that I guess that's what they say, hey, there's a parade. Let's stand on the side of it and shake our can a little bit and see if somebody will throw a few pennies in. I don't want to spend a ton of time bashing Our Revolution, but I think it should be recognized. Is that money really going where you want it to go? Is it really going to bring about the change you want? This guy really disappointed me. When Robert Reich, I know Arlen's a big fan of Robert Reich. I think he's a phony. I think he's another progressive. Look at this. As we resist Trump's tyranny, America gains solidarity. As we gain, well, it's a nice little sort of a progression, right? As we gain solidarity, we feel more courageous. As we feel courageous and stand up to Trump, we weaken him and his regime. As we weaken Trump and his regime, we have less to fear. Okay. So much wrong with that. First of all, just America, as we resist Trump's tyranny, how are we resisting it? Going to some rally is a resistance? Is that really resisting it? But let's say as we criticize Trump, right? As we go to some rally, we gain really? I think that divides America. I don't think AOC and Bernie are uniting America with a message that really, remember, the Democrats are less popular than Trump is, than the Republicans. So promoting a message of how bad Trump is, and that's your only message, that just perpetuates the partisan divide. If you want to gain solidarity, talk about issues that Americans believe in. Talk about Medicare for all. Talk about taxing the rich. Talk about how the healthcare system is so corrupt, so wrong, so immoral that when a young man puts a bolt in the head of a CEO, most Americans praise him, applaud him. That's how you build solidarity, Reich. You take on the corrupt in both parties. It's not about how great, how fantastic two centrist warmonger Dems are. That's not gaining solidarity. And I don't think it makes anyone feel more courageous. The message you're hearing from Bernie and AOC is just, oh, Trump's so awful, he's so scary, he's so terrible. That doesn't make you feel more courageous. What you feel more courageous is we're going to defeat the oligarchy, not by tried and failed methods like electing corporate Dems. We're going to unite in support of candidates who are against both parties, who are against the billionaire class. So I found this message to be reprehensible, frankly. But it's consistent with the scammer theme of this program. So again, Reich, just real quick, this is from his Substack, The Contagion of Courage, his Sunday thought yesterday, The Contagion of Courage. Oh, and by the way, again, please, love to have you subscribe now. Just go quickly, give you that little button. And also, don't forget like Halitics as well. Would be more than welcome to see those likes. I got a lot of likes. A lot of likes. Were really cool to see for that impeach program. So the Sunday thought, The Contagion of Courage, from Robert Reich. The Contagion of Courage, and then you see if we're courageous, we'll all feel good about it. But really, it's all just in service. Subscribe to my Substack. And by the way, subscribe as a paid subscriber. let's see if I can boost this. So he praises Ms. Gerzib. She sees a lot of courage in Bernie and AOC and Cory Booker, 25 hours straight to say nothing and do nothing on the floor of the Senate. Wow. Wow. He was so courageous. Tim Walz, yes, I give Tim Walz credit. He criticized Kamala Harris. He gets credit for that. And why is he doing all this? Is it just because he wants more paid subscribers? I don't know. Does he want you to, let's see. I mean, he's got that upgrade to paid right there. Maybe. I don't know. I'm guessing. By the way, Ari giving me a lot of credit. Thank you, Ari. Really, really appreciate that. So I want to give the, evidence, because I said question, is Bernie, is AOC, are they scammers? Well, I think this video kind of gives you a flavor, at least for why I would argue that they are. This is from Idaho. And there was criticism, Sabby Sab said not a lot of black faces in the crowd. The Democrats need more black faces. I didn't agree with that criticism in particular. The Democratic Party lost pretty much every group except black women in the last election. So really, what they need are working class voters. That's who they need to appeal to. But they're not getting them either at these rallies. That's the problem. These are more, and let me see if I can show you the image here. You can see they're all white. Now, this is Idaho, so Idaho is a very white state. But this is going to be a middle to upper middle class crowd. That's who they're appealing to. They're not reaching factory workers. They're not reaching ag workers. Their message is not unifying. It remains divisive. Because they're not talking about true economic justice. They're not taking on the oligarchs in the Democratic Party. So and look at that flag in the middle. Bernie standing right there. Somebody put that Free Palestine flag in front of the American flag. I love it. I love that so very, very much. It's interesting. Bernie doesn't realize it's there, at least not for a while. Let's play the video.
No, President Trump, Ukraine did not start that war.
All right, so I want to stop right there. Totally divisive message where he goes about Ukraine. Ukraine didn't start that war. Bernie, it's a complex situation. The U.S. did provoke Putin to a very significant degree. The U.S. also, Biden-Harris promoted that war. So your message is absolutely divisive. Your message, Bernie, is absolutely, despite what Robert Reich may be saying, your message is absolutely pitting pro-war versus anti-war working people against each other and making it much harder. And you're on the wrong side of it. Terrible message. But one that explains maybe the $9.6 million donations, because middle-class people are like, oh, it's terrible what they read the New York Times and they read the Washington Post, and they're like, oh, it's just so terrible, terrible, terrible what Putin is doing. We've got to send a lot of money over there, which, by the way, since I own some Raytheon stock, won't be so bad anyway. Here we go. Someone lifted up that flag back there. Why am I not seeing? Let me start this again. Because we got to go. Here we go. There's the flag.
No, President Trump, Ukraine did not start that war. Russia did.
Oh, yeah, the flag. The Palestine flag isn't there yet.
But it's not just Ukraine. Trump is following in the rather unfortunate behavior of Joe Biden and wants billions of dollars more to fund Netanyahu's war machine in Gaza. Israel, like any country on earth, has the right to defend itself.
All right, so stop it. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel was attacked by its victims. I do not think it was good. It was awful that all those people were killed. It was terrible. Many of them were obviously innocent on October 7. You put us, when you say that Israel's right, yes, they have a right to stop their own citizens from being killed. That's not really defending yourself. I guess it is. You stop them from killing your own people. So self-defense in that moment. But obviously what they did was horrific. And if you really want to defend yourself, and Israel, and Bernie should say this, is then you have a free Palestine and a free Israel, all residents are free from the river to the sea.
But it does not have the right to wage all-out war against the Palestinians.
All right, so there's that. Let's get the rest of this in. See if we can see where the flag gets lifted.
I'll tell you just a little bit of what's going on in America that you're not going to see on corporate media.
So Bernie doesn't know the flag's there.
On the halls of Congress. And that right now in America, we have two Americas. We have on top one America in which the wealthiest people, the top 1%, have never, ever had it so good.
I wanted to say I don't even agree with that, really, because we are living in end times, right? And I'll talk about this more with Arlen tomorrow on Earth Day. But I don't know how you could think, even if you're a billionaire, you've never had it so good. Your children, your grandchildren, maybe you get to be lords, but you get to be lords of a dying planet. And you're not going to be, good luck colonizing Mars. Okay, yeah, that's going to really work out well for you. And now look, someone's pulling up that Palestine flag and the crowd doesn't, now they're unfurling it again. Now Bernie sees it. He sees it. And people are booing because they're pulling the flag up. They're saying, don't pull up the flag. Leave the flag down. Leave the flag up so we can see it. Bernie doesn't like this. This is where the crowd is going in a direction he's not happy with. The crowd is getting all worked up about Palestine. They're saying, wait, this is wrong. Let's focus on the genocide. Let's condemn the genocide. Let's figure something out where we can do rally people against Trump. And by the way, I would say this is where you impeach Trump, right? That's what you have to do. You demand and go beyond that, because this is an issue that is so powerful for people, for many people, for the young people in this audience, to the extent that there are young people there, that you could actually really build a resistance around it.
Today, in America today, we have more income.
So he doesn't want to hear about Palestine. We're not talking about Palestine. We're talking about inequality. We're talking about inequality. That's what, don't bother me with Palestine.
In America today,
this is a moment where Bernie could start talking, realize the sentiments of the crowd and say, wait a second. And apparently, you don't see this in this video, but I understand people were arrested. Bernie doesn't say a word about it. He doesn't say, hey, stop it. Don't arrest them. They have a right to show that flag here. In my rally, at my event, they have the authority. They are authorized to put that Palestine flag up. And instead, he ignores it. If he was really committed to resisting Trump, if he was really committed to fighting oligarchy, rather than sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party, then he would be talking about Palestine right now and talking about the injustice, the cruelty, the genocide. He doesn't want to go there because he knows that his bread is buttered in part by the warmongers, the weapons manufacturers. He doesn't want a revolution. He just doesn't. He'll tweak. He won't completely revamp. Which means your money's going to waste because you ain't getting economic justice without an end to genocide, without an end to the war machine, without an end to the killing, without an end to a government that's directed by for-profit weapons manufacturers, for-profit healthcare, Wall Street. Now they're chanting Free Palestine. This is such a great opportunity for Bernie to say, let me tell you, it's not just the Republicans. Oh, I put in a bill to stop funding the war machine and only 15 Democrats voted for it. We have to vote all the others out. They all have to go. He could say that. And he would be, are you kidding me? The applause would be deafening. He wouldn't be able to talk for 5 minutes. People would be going so crazy. Not going to say it. Because he's not really about fighting oligarchy. So the crowd's going crazy. Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. The most important issue of our day. As important as I think the climate catastrophe is, I cannot put that ahead of the deliberate mass murder of Palestinians. The most important issue of the day, and Bernie just doesn't want to talk about it.
Okay. All right, let me move on to, I know that this is a
Let me move on.
sensitive issue. Something
sensitive? See, that's it. It's sensitive. We can't really talk about it because it's sensitive. So disappointing. Scammer? You tell me. 240-242-5646. Now, I know it's sensitive, Bernie, but if you really want change, and I know Robert Reich says that you're building solidarity, but you know what solidarity looks like? The collapsing support for Israel, especially among Democrats. But I understand there are Trumpers who also don't support, at least they don't support all the money that's going to Israel. Collapsing. So you want to build you want a revolution, you want people in the streets, you want change, then don't cape for Israel. Don't change the subject when Israel comes up organically. Talk about it. Talk about how wrong, how immoral, how evil what they're doing is. Won't do it. Just won't do it. It's time to move on. We need a new party. We need to do something very, very, very different. Got into it a little bit on Facebook. Not too badly, but a guy that I have a lot of respect for, real progressive, somebody who's always been really good to me, posted this. I'm not going to identify them, but they can call in if they want. So they posted from Ida Martinak, who is the moderator. A lot of times they take people's names out. Not that I have to. I mean, they put it up publicly, but Ida Martinak is the moderator of AOC Progressive. So I assume as moderator, she's perfectly happy to have this shared. And she notes, well, I'm pleasantly surprised that David Hogue said, we talked about this last week, an unprecedented move, DNC official to spend big to take down fellow Dems. I'm not just putting that up because I saw this and I commented. It is totally germane to today's conversation. And I was critical of that. Not the person who posted it was just cited it without any commentary. So I guess they were looking for responses. So I wanted to respond and give my view on this, which is what I said on the program last week. But I'm going to share it again because I think it's important. Why I don't think any of us should look at this with any great optimism that the Democratic Party is moving in a better direction. Here's what I wrote. Hogue won't support a challenge to Pelosi, even though she's one of the biggest problems in Congress. She tanked AOC's bid. Remember, she rallied support against AOC to be the ranking Dem on the House Oversight Committee. And I wrote Rankin Dem, which is funny because Jamie Rankin, was it Raskin? Right. It should be to be Raskin Dem, but I got it wrong. To be Rankin Dem on the House Oversight Committee. Hogue's only basis, explicit, is, hey, I'll support challengers if the incumbent is old and isn't doing anything. But if they're doing something really bad, like Pelosi is, I guess that's okay, right? It's fine to support genocide and endless war. It's no problem if you vote for Hakeem Jeffries, who is the congressman from Wall Street in Israel. Of course, it's okay because every House member did. If you were going to support challenges to every House member who voted for the congressman from Wall Street in Israel, then you'd have to support challenges to every last one. Which I do, by the way, vote for non-Dems. If you want to engage in a 25-hour meaningless filibuster, rock on. Just don't appear to be old and doing nothing. So it's useless. It's pointless. It's a meaningless exercise to say we're going to support challenges. But the person whose page that had been posted took issue with what I wrote and asked me, well, let me show you what they asked me because it was a really good question. And that's why this is being discussed, because I do want to just talk briefly about what my strategy is for people who maybe don't really know, and it forced me to really think about it. So briefly describe a strategy and an option that would agree with your proposals and would capture enough of the electorate to gain a majority in both the House and the Senate for at least 2 terms. Well, that's not going to, right. I mean, right now we have to build an alternative party. It's the only solution. That's the only way. And so what I said is, I don't think there's any real hope, right? I mean, that's not an optimistic message, and maybe there's some hope. I kind of belied what I write. But we tried to improve the Democratic Party. In other words, by voting some bad people out and putting good people in. We tried, and the party's gotten worse. Clearly, it's worse than ever. And so I say, well, I don't think a full throat embrace of non-duopoly candidates is likely to work. It is the only thing that could work. And how do we do that? Well, we all on social media, we need to constantly promote an anti-Democratic Party message. We've got to turn people against that party. And so the party itself knows that it cannot win going in the direction it's going now. It has to change. Will that be enough? No, because they don't even care if they don't win. As long as some of them win, the establishment people win and they get their golden parachutes, that's good enough. But it would start a bit of a groundswell if rank and file Democrats knew they cannot win. They're recording irrelevance if they continue to support the current iteration of the party. But what we also really need to do is center any potential pro-life, pro-peace, pro-environment candidates who are not Democrats, or if they're Democrats, can be truly trusted to attack consistently other Dems. None are. And so I say, hey, in Maryland, we need to rally behind Andy Alice for governor. California, you need to rally behind Butch Ware. You have to always support non-Democrats every time there's one running. And I want to be really clear about this. I like Andy a lot. I think he's a great guy. I don't agree with everything in his agenda, his policies. I don't agree with all of them. His platform, that's the word I was looking for. I don't agree with everything Butch Ware. Both of them are far too focused on identity politics, in my view. Both support reparations. I don't. I don't know about Butch Ware. He's running for governor in California. I don't know where he stands on trans issues, but I know that Andy's very, his view, and I believe in trans rights too. I think there should be biological female only spaces. Andy, I don't think agrees with that. I'm not certain. I don't think he agrees with that. I think there should be some spaces that are just for biological women, including sports teams. I'm pretty certain Andy doesn't agree with that. And I think those are important. And I don't think that's a non-issue. I don't think that's an unimportant issue. I think it's relevant. I also think by being against bio women only spaces to the extent Andy is, I think it hurts him. I think it makes it less likely he'll get elected. I think that's a mistake from a policy perspective, as I think are focusing on reparations. I'm okay with reparations as long as first and foremost you address poverty, period, across the board. As long as you first and foremost address the absence of any health care for anybody, right? Everyone gets health care, period, free at the point of delivery. Education for everybody is debt-free from college on, obviously before the high school. Public schools need to be. So you want to talk about specific remedies addressing specific identity groups? Okay, first we make sure there's nobody sleeping under bridges or begging in the streets, regardless of the color of their skin. So I don't agree with, I have some pretty significant differences with certain non-Democratic Party, non-Republican Party candidates. But I'll still vote for them because on balance, I tend to agree with them more, and also because I know the Democratic Party will not listen to an economic justice message. I know the Democratic Party will not listen to a pro-peace message. I know the Democratic Party will not listen to a pro-environment message, and that nobody, whether it's AOC or Bernie or anyone else, is going to force them to. So I'll vote for a candidate I have disagreements with, even sometimes very significant ones, if they're not in the Democratic Party. I want to close. I had said in my peroration about how we make change that we really need institutions and well-known, relatively, influential or influencers to join us. And when I first saw this video, this is from Generational Change, Jen Perlman with Senator Nina Turner, I thought, when I first watched it, I thought Nina's not going to be an ally. And I was prepared to actually snip it and play some clips where I disagreed with Senator Nina. I was really pleasantly surprised. I don't always agree with Turner, but I think she really has, and so does Jen, or Jen's sidekick, some really good things to say. So let's play it, and we'll end on kind of this optimistic note of what maybe we can do.
I need to get back to Congressman Ro Khanna just real quick. Now, he was in my home city, Cleveland, Ohio.
I wanted to stop it there. I wanted this conversation about Ro Khanna because, remember, Ro Khanna is considered one of the real progressives in Congress. And he's the guy who day trades. He's the guy who's worth maybe $100 million, who will take on the establishment only to a point. Now, I don't think being rich is necessarily, that shouldn't be preclusive. But if you're buying and selling stocks on a daily basis, you look really, really bad doing that. And I showed, that there were days when his family would make a lot of trades. You look really bad. I understand he doesn't own any military stocks right now. He used to. He voted for Hakeem Jeffries to be the leader. He's far from ideal. And here they're talking about him, and I was like, oh my God, she's going to say really good things about Khanna. Let me play some more of this.
City Club of Cleveland, which has been around for about well over 100 years, talking about a type of patriotism that is not linked to wealth,
which, it's easy. Again, he's very wealthy, and Turner doesn't talk about it. So again, this was really, the question was, would you support Ro Khanna or Butch Ware for governor? And she's saying some pretty positive things about Khanna here.
We need to move in a direction that lifts people, working class people, and I'm paraphrasing him. He is, I mean, I was co-chair with him on Senator Sanders' campaign, as you both know, and the congressman and I have been knowing each other for a while. We can have hard conversations with each other, and we do behind the scenes. Sometimes you got to call people up and not call them out. And him and I have been friends for quite a while and deepened that friendship serving on Senator Sanders' 2020 campaign as co-chairs. The message that he sent today, how he called out the Trump administration and you know, Vance included, all of them, I think is important for people like him. Peter, you're right. He could be doing anything, and he is doing this. He is somebody that could be swayed even more. He does take unpopular positions that are different from his mainline Democrat colleagues.
I wanted an example of that because I'm not really clear what those unpopular positions are that he's taken, but you know, I'm sure there's some. I'm not really clear. He did, I think, call for an end to supporting Israel, but I don't know how unpopular that really is. Anyway, more from Turner on extolling Ro Khanna.
Time. And I got to applaud him for that. That doesn't mean him and I agree on every little thing, but I don't believe to be in relationship with somebody that I have to always 100% agree. What I want to be able to do is always pick up the phone and tell you how I see things, and you can tell me why you did what you did, and either we can agree or agree to disagree. I want your audience to know that Congressman Ro Khanna is that kind of person where other people would not care, you know, in that sphere of what somebody like Senator Nina Turner has to say. Congressman.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there because this was where I was like, Nina totally lost me. And I'm going to play the clip where she kind of gets me back. But I just want to say that. So she's saying, hey, the great thing about Ro Khanna is that I can pick up the phone and he'll answer the phone. Now, forgive me for not really giving a rat's fat butt whether Ro Khanna answers your call or if he talks to you and explains his position. I don't care about that stuff. I care about how he votes. If he votes for Hakeem Jeffries to be that leader of the Democrats, that's a really, really bad vote. That's awful. If he does that, I don't care that he answers your calls. I don't care that he explains himself to you. I care about what he does. So this completely lost me. This was this whole confusing access with influence. Hey, he talks to me, so he's good folks, right? So I was like, please leave me alone. Don't. But, and I'm going to play the clip where she got me back. Not 100%, but to a degree. We got a couple clips. So two more. Let's see if this is the right one. I hope it is. And then we'll finish off. I think this is actually Peter. That's the guy speaking. Let's see if we get him here.
Say in Roe's defense, because.
And this is where they all lost me, right? Because it isn't, at least he started because he's going on about how great Ro Khanna is. And again, this is this is possibly a centimillionaire, which doesn't end the conversation, but he's so wealthy. Why isn't he funding an alternative to the Democrats? Why isn't he? See, this is the thing. You got all that money, use it to bring about positive change, not to cape for Democrats. Not to make excuses for Democrats. Use it to build the Green Party or some other alternative. Then you have my respect for having all that money.
And if he is going to run for governor, he would be the one Democrat in California that I do think would have the type of gravitas and perhaps the amount of credibility on the Democratic Party that would even be worth supporting.
So he's saying it might be worth supporting him for governor. I don't agree with that. I totally reject that. And this is, again, and Turner's nodding. So I'm like, oh my God, please don't do this. Please, please, Jen Perlman, you've made it clear how much contempt you have for the Democratic Party of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who thumped you twice in your race in Florida, I guess in Palm Beach or Fort Lauderdale, wherever it is. And you've made it clear that this party can change. You've been so eloquent in your criticism of AOC. So please don't start in on how great Ro Khanna is, please, or your producer there. Please don't do that. So again, they kind of make up for this at the end. But yeah, this was problematic.
Have been very adamant about the fact that we do support Butch Ware.
So this is where I'm like, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Again, I just said, I don't love Butch. I don't love Andy. There's no one I love, you know. If it's not me, then I'm going to disagree with you on at least something. And I get you have to make compromises. You want to be, at least have a movement. You feel like you have to appeal to certain groups. So you support certain identity politics. I think that's a mistake. I just don't agree with that. I think you have to support universal programs that lift everyone who's not already affluent, who's not already secure. You have to make sure everyone is secure. Period. That to me is the political lodestone, the holy grail of politics. So I'm not big on the identity stuff, but I get it. I get why they do it.
Democratic Party that would even be worth supporting. We have been very adamant about the fact that we do support Butch Ware, who is running in the Green Party ticket.
I know.
And I'm glad Jen's nodding there. Yeah, we support. And so is Turner.
Yeah.
Yep, he's good people. And I think one of the true benefits to him running is that you're never going to force the Democratic Party's hand unless there's an alternative that's outside the party that actually has juice.
So I agree with that. 100%. They will not change unless they're threatened with losing to somewhat further to the left. They won't change. They'll move to the right when they're threatened by someone from the right. They won't become better. They won't become more progressive. Bernie had an opportunity to pull the party to the left, and he gave it up. AOC had an opportunity to pull the party to the left in 2021. She chose not to force the vote. But let's finish off. This is where Turner has to say something that's very, very good. Her message is slightly muted. It's not as strong as I would like. But remember, we're looking for influencers. We're looking for allies to take down the Democratic Party, to take on the Democratic Party, and not to say, okay, I'm going to enter it. I'm going to enter it so that I can become a Democrat and, feed at the trough. And that's not what she says.
Which where? And do you still feel that if the Democratic Party is going to be salvaged in any capacity, there has to be some type of a clean break? And if somebody like Roe is willing to do it at the gubernatorial level, perhaps it's possible, but you can also understand why people have given up on the two-party system at this point. Would you say?
So I thought that was good, too, because he's saying, hey, maybe Roe could really challenge the Democratic Party from the inside. Maybe he really could try to make a break from the corporate-dominated pro-war policies. Maybe. But you can understand why people wouldn't agree with that. So what does Nina say?
Duopoly is a complete failure. It's an epic fail. It serves
the duopoly is a complete failure, an epic failure. Let's just hear that again, because this is really important stuff, what Turner's saying there.
System at this point. Would you say that would be fair?
Duopoly is a complete failure. It's an epic fail. It serves no one but itself. These people eat from the same trough, and it's called corporate power. That's really, there's no difference. It's just a difference on how they put it out into the world, how they operate. Versus, it's the difference between the fox and the wolf. That's all this is. But
so she's saying, hey, they're the same. Democrats, Republicans. Yeah, I like Roe. I can call them up. But then you go into it. Fox and a wolf. They're both going to eat you. Doesn't really matter. Just different method.
Both of them going to attack you. And I want people in this country to vote for whoever they want to vote for. That's
but she says, I'm not going to say they should vote for Democrats. Now, I don't love what she says here. I'm going to play it again because I don't love this. This isn't what I would say, but let me play it.
It's the same. Both of them going to attack you. And I want people in this country to vote for whoever they want to vote for. That's what a representative democracy is about. And it's just.
All right. So I want people to vote for whoever they want to. So that's not my message. My message is I want you to vote for progressives who are not Democrats, because Democrats aren't progressive. I want you to vote for Green Party candidates. I want you, if not, to vote for, if there's no true progressive in a race, don't vote at all. I'm not going to say to Nina, vote for whoever you want, because I have certain preferences. I wanted you to vote for Jill Stein in 2024. I wanted you to vote for Jill Stein in 2016. And I would like it if Nina would start that ball going forward. Hey, it's time to move away from the Democratic and Republican duopoly. She says it, but she doesn't quite say it. She's close. She's closer to an ally than anything else at this point, and that's what we need. I will be back tomorrow. It is tomorrow is, by the way, Earth Day. So we'll talk about the environmental cataclysm with Arlen and many other topics as well.